And we are back with ELF Live for week 5, and I am here back with a little bit of a tan, sitting here with my main man, Matt Bressington. What's going on, Matt? How you doing, man? It's great to be back on the show with you.
It's great to have you back. I'm not very good at these intros. You saw last week my voice cracked with the first words I said. I'm not cut out for it, Nick, so I'm glad you're back doing the intros.
A lot of pressure on those opening seconds right there, Matt. A lot of pressure comes when you get into your 30s and you get a wedding ring on your finger. Then you're ready for those opening segments there. But I'm happy to be back with you. What's up, everybody in the chat? And big shout out to our man Jarvis, who was filling in while I was gone on my honeymoon. And you know what? While I was sitting on the beaches of Hawaii, the nice cold drink in my hand, looking at the Pacific Ocean, all I could think about was ELF football. And I am thrilled to be back here on the show with everyone in the chat. We got Marcus, the Vikings are in the chat, Joseph Ravello, Rising Rhino, Broken Spine, the Prague Lions fan. Okay, welcome, brother. We got a great show for you guys today. Of course, always put on by Euronics. And of course, on the Monday show, we've got our individual game recaps. Then we've got a very interesting, Matt, as seen on social segments. We've got a little bit of a beef going on social media. Very fun and entertaining for us. And then, of course, on the Monday show, so important, you guys stick around because at the end of the show, we're going to nominate 2 players to be the MVP of the week in the chat. You guys are very instrumental in that. So, Matt, with that being said, what do you think? Should we pop on into our individual games for week 5?
Absolutely. Can't wait any longer.
All right, let's get on into it. Starting off with a little bit of a doozy, a little bit of a snore fest, if you will. Fun one for the Wrocław Panthers, not so fun for the Cologne Centurions, who are now sitting at 0-4. Matt, give me your detailed thoughts on this one.
Oh, man, the detailed thoughts is going to be, when your eyes glaze over when you're watching, you're a bit like, damn, this is a rough one to watch. You know what I'm happy about, though, is David Brzozowski finally got some more of his rushing yards that he deserved because he was not getting used enough in the first few weeks. I believe he was 1 yard short in this game of doubling his season total, which is good for him. Very, very glad he did it. Also, because I had him in fantasy football, so that definitely helps. Jazlewski as well getting used more, so I think we're starting to see the Panthers offense maybe opening up a little bit after a couple of medium to poor weeks.
Right. I mean, hey, not to take anything away from David, okay, but he ran for 150 yards, right? I think I could probably run for 107 yards against the Cologne Centurions defense. So happy that David's getting some of those yards and getting a little bit back into form that we've seen him in previous seasons. But, Cologne Centurions defense, not so good. Same with their offense. Matt, I think you want to go on a little bit of a rant about the Cologne Centurions, who are just a little bit in shambles right now.
Yeah, you could definitely say shambles. It's an understatement to say the least. I'm so annoyed, Nick, right? Everyone always comments about the wide scoreline, especially with this week, because we did have some wild ones. But I want to talk about a little known art called roster construction and just teams that take it and teams that do not take roster construction seriously. Let me give you some examples. Prague this year took it very seriously. I was involved with it. Warner was involved with it. Dan Dish was involved with it. We all committed to building a great roster. Now one of the hottest teams, most excited teams in ELF right now. Surge, 0-12, worst team in the league by far. Now they're a title contender. People are going to talk about Unicorns, but like you said in the pre-show, only 12 players from that Unicorns roster came into the Surge. They moneyballed the league. They did an amazing job. Nordic Storm come into the league. New team, fresh new team, completely new. Most of that roster has never played in ELF before. They scouted. They found the talent. Now they're a title contender. Same with Madrid. Playoffs in the first year. Had some players that came over from Barcelona, but not all of them. They scouted. They found players. And this is what Cologne could do. My hot take, Nick. Cologne could be rebuilt in a season easily. There's a German player on every single team that could be a backup in maybe a Frankfurt Galaxy, could be elevated to a starter in Cologne Centurions. They need to be better. They can be better. There is the players to be better. There's no excuse to not hire a scouting department in the big old 2025-2026 seasons.
Absolutely. And hey, just going with that, like going with the Surge situation from 2022 to 2023. And people like to all talk about, the whole Schwäbisch Hall Unicorns came over and that was just sort of a plug and play with the Surge. It was 11 or 12 players from that team that came over there, and they really pieced that together from all sorts of different spots. And just as you said, man, I think there's no excuse, especially for a German team with the homegrown talent that's in this country, to not be able to put together some of these things. But on the positive side, let's talk about the Panthers just a little bit. Your boy DJ Irons actually looked pretty solid. Granted, once again against Cologne, he was 19 for 26, 208 yards, 4 touchdowns, no picks and no sacks. We have seen him sack quite a bit previously, so that was pretty good. Granted, with an asterisk, of course, against the Cologne Centurions. Boy, Devin Burrell had a pick, looking good as usual. But man, Cologne, dude. These teams, I think they had the exact same amount of plays, or one of them had 56 plays, one had 55. Panthers put up 400 yards of offense, and Cologne put up 140. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. They can't convert on third down. Just a big mess in Cologne. And Matt, just what you said, this is a team that's got to figure it out and sort of rebuild in the offseason, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I just want to call out Sinner Richard in the Instagram thing. It said I'm tripping about 1 year. It could be done 1 year. Surge went from 1 year to being 0-12 to being near a championship game. Exactly the same with a ton of teams. We saw Madrid playoffs in the first season. The Ravens also did really, really well in that first year. Trust me, ELF can flip like a dime. You can get 1 year, you can be a bottom feeder, then you could be in a championship contender. This is the reality of European American football.
Absolutely, man. And we've got the former MVP himself, Glenn Tunga, in the chat. I'm trying to throw this up here. It's not working, Lucas, producer. I can't click on it. There we go. Maybe you can throw it up. He says, hot take, non-German teams are taking over. I don't even know if that's such a hot take. You got Paris, you got Madrid, you've got the Austrian teams, and of course, you've got the lovely new boys on the block, the Nordic Storm, who are looking pretty good. And you know what? I would be remiss, Matt, to not mention the Prague Lions in that conversation. An exciting team, okay? Maybe I wouldn't go over as far as to say as they're taking over, but they're in that top 10 conversation. So this one was a snooze fest to start off the weekend, unfortunately, but the Panthers pulled themselves up to 500, absolutely dominating the Cologne Centurions. All right, moving on to our next game. And here we have got it was a pretty highly anticipated game, at least until the Hamburg Sea Devils got rid of Tagovailoa right before the game. And the Rhine Fire came in, or the Rhine Fire stomped the Hamburg Sea Devils here. One thing I want to note on this was very cool on the broadcast. We had 2 broadcasters. I think this was one of the first times that we ever had 2 commentators. We had a play-by-play guy and a color commentator on the game. Granted, the game itself on the field wasn't the most exciting, but that is a great thing to have for the television viewing product for those of us at home. Matt, thoughts on this one?
First of all, agreed. Me and you have both done commentary, and it is hard doing it as a single person in the booth. You know, not to bounce energy off of. That is absolutely a step in the absolute perfect direction. Bright sparks for Hamburg, though. Chris Mankaya looking like a real rookie of the year favorite. Yep. Maybe even like he has been one of the best. I don't want this to be understated. One of the best rookie running backs we have ever seen in the ELF, which is insanity. And you got other players, defensive pieces, Nazir Streeter, Carl Kitchens, of course. So he hasn't been performing to the highest level. We'll get to that. But there are some bright sparks. It's kind of a write-off, like you said, with Talia leaving after just 2 weeks. It's a shame, but we really wish we could have seen more of him. But Ryan Fire, they took it. They dominated on all 3 phases, with Amari getting that return and Chad looking a bit more comfortable. I wouldn't say the Ryan Fire offense is exactly on fire, I guess, but like it's just not been great.
No, it's interesting. That's a great pun right there, Matt. Ryan Fire offense not necessarily on fire. Chad was efficient. He was 13 for 17 or whatever it was. He did complete passes to like 7 or 8 different wide receivers, so he was distributing the ball around there. But yeah, their offense leaves a little to be desired for me still at this point. Not really getting so much done on the offensive side there. But hey, defensive side, we got to talk about Tony Anderson, man. He had himself a damn day. He had 10 tackles, a TFL, 2 interceptions, and 2 PBUs. That's an insane stat line for a defensive player. And you know, Matt, we love to highlight defensive players on the show whenever we get the opportunity to do so. Question, Matt, what's Hamburg got to do to figure this out? Do you think they're going to be okay when Michael Leone comes back? Because Moritz Mack, not the best stat line. I think he had 2 completions. You're not going to get it done there. What do you
That's
think about
correct.
Hamburg when they get their starting quarterback back?
It's a difficult one. I can't shake the feeling that they're still in that lower mid. I don't I can't see him getting over that. If you bring in Michael Leon, is not always going to just solve the problem that you conceded 43 points around fire. Offenses only averaged 10 until now. Of course, field position, stuff like that, people are going to be annoyed at me that I didn't mention field position. So I'm just going to cover myself on that. They just need to be better on the offensive line. It wasn't good enough. The receivers aren't getting open as well. The play calling's been a little bit in for that. You don't have an American quarterback. Why don't you bring in someone like Nazir Streeter, who's a very good athlete, to play a bit of receiver, a bit of running back? Switch it up, give different looks to something that Jamal Clay really highlighted. And in a way, they had such a short-term problem. They didn't try and get a little bit more creative with it. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, get a little creative. I mean, look at what the Raiders T-Roll did when their quarterback was out, and they had Adrian Platzcomer in the backfield, throwing the ball maybe 8 to 10 times a game, but at least getting some things done and some productivity on offense in creative ways. So Hamburg, not so creative there, and the Rhine Fire stomping on the Sea Devils, and the Rhine Fire as well, bringing themselves back up to 500 on their record. All right, moving on, Matt, to our next game. Oh, the Enthroners of Fehérvár playing against the Berlin Thunder. And this was a little bit one-sided, kind of until the fourth quarter, and then the Enthroners made it a little bit interesting, actually. We did see Jacob Sullivan take off one or two times. He had that 50-yard touchdown run. We forget Jacob Sullivan is able to take care of things with his feet sometimes. He's been in this league for a while now, and he's just been airing it out. But don't forget, Jacob Sullivan can still run the football as well. Matt, what are your thoughts on this game?
I have a bit of a hot take, Nick. I think the
Oh,
Enthroners threw this game away. I
oh,
think they could have won this one. I think you look at that 50-yard touchdown, you remove that big mistake off because they're not a run team. Let's be honest, they're not doing that very often. You remove that fourth and I think it's like 4th and 10, 4th and 6, and they get like a long 30, 40-yard touchdown out of that. That's another mistake. And the pick six just in the end of the game, that's 3 scores that they could have potentially moved off, at least 2, and they could have made this game more competitive. They had the interception with Miles Butt, shout out Miles Butt, and they had some moments. I actually think Hegedus played okay. It was
did.
considered
Yeah.
like he played all right, played some good balls. Rashad Steele was really good. John Cole will get to. He was really good as well. I can't shake the feeling that the Enthroners kind of let this one go.
Dude, Hegedus shit. I mean, he threw the ball 41 times. I think he only completed 19 or 20 of them, but he had 3 touchdowns. Did throw 2 picks, but I mean, for a homegrown quarterback here coming in and trying to play in the ELF, he's one of the few guys we've seen this year do that. It is tough. You're up against a lot when doing that. And then going back to what you said about Berlin in the run game, yeah, Berlin had over 100 yards rushing, but damn near half of that came on just the broken play that Jacob Sullivan took 50 yards to the house. So if you take that away, Berlin's still under 100 yards rushing. Pretty one-dimensional for the most part. Cole did have 13 catches for 140 yards and a touchdown. Looked pretty solid at times there. But what do you think, Matt? What do you take away for the Berlin Thunder in this one? Fehérvár, it's kind of tough sitting there at 0-5. But Berlin, where are you at on them?
Yeah, I mean, just one random stat I found out during the other games was that the Fehérvár Enthroners have only held a team to 0 points in a quarter, 1 quarter this year, and it was a 4th quarter against Madrid. Every other quarter they've conceded points in, which is not a good look.
Not great.
Not
No.
great. So Berlin, they're definitely a lower middle than Hamburg are, 100%. I think that they're a worse team than Hamburg is, kind of from top to bottom. But they are kind of just stuck in they've lost all their key pieces because they've lost Luke Myron, they lost Emil Horvath, they lost Carl Kitchens, they lost so many great pieces on that team that kind of made their identity. And they don't really have much of an identity at the moment. The only thing they have an identity is that they're inept at running the ball, which is not a very good identity to have.
You don't
So
want
I
it.
think they need to create more of a not like a Berlin style of football, but they need to do something that just makes some people excited to watch their games. Because at the moment, we don't really know too much. Like you guys get an average casual ELF fan. What do you know about the Berlin Thunder? They probably wouldn't be able to give you very much.
No, I think that's a fair point. Rising Rhino, our Prague Lions fan, says Berlin is mid, and I think Matt, you are concurring with that statement. You guys are in agreement there. So The Berlin Thunder escape the Fehervar Enthroners, who were attempting to come back here. Berlin sitting now at 2-3. And the Enthroners, unfortunately, are winless after 5 weeks. All right, Matt, let's move on here to a game that I thought was going to be a lot more interesting. And we've been talking about the Nordic Storm. Oh, they're undefeated, but who have they really played? I had a couple cupcake games, right? First few weeks. The real test for the Nordic Storm, that's going to be week 5. And we're going to see if they really are a team. And everyone thought, okay, Frankfurt Galaxy. They ended up playing the Surge pretty close up into the fourth quarter. Granted, the score of that Surge game, it didn't accurately reflect the dominance of the Surge there, but they played them close at the end. They beat the Paris Musketeers. Wow, Frankfurt, maybe they're actually pretty legit here. So we thought Frankfurt, some of us even had them in the top 5 in power rankings coming into this week. Thought that it's going to be a big test for the Nordic Storm, Matt. And the Nordic Storm absolutely smacked the Frankfurt Galaxy. Little caveat here that we must note. A lot of rumors flying around that a lot of Frankfurt Galaxy players got sick. They got food poisoning at the hotel here the morning of the game, and they had a lot of players who were battling that. Normally, I would say BS on these type of claims here. That's just an excuse. However, I was so surprised by the utter dominance of this Nordic Storm team over Frankfurt, because Frankfurt, all things considered, still is a very solid squad this year. And for them to get absolutely just shut out like this, I think there might be some truth to the food poisoning rumors. Matt, thoughts on this game, and also thoughts on the food poisoning excuse?
Yeah, I mean, you yourself, you struggle with food poisoning and FIBO. So, if anyone knows it, it's you.
In there.
It can have on you.
In there.
So they're definitely right. I think it was visible, the impact it had. Their team just looked slow from the first. Literally, the first play was a fumble on their offense. They didn't really stop Nordic ever. It was a slow, kind of meandering performance. It kind of feeds into the inconsistency of the Galaxy, doesn't it? Like,
Yeah.
they're pretty poor for 3 quarters against Surge. They were like really good for a bit against Paris and then kind of fell off and then somehow get it back and more inconsistency. They have moments against Cologne where you're like, damn, they really just gave up like that really easily to Cologne, which are not a very good team. And then this one, they just get blown out. McKay with what we all assume is the best offensive line, or at least one of the best offensive lines, gives up 5 sacks. He throws 2 picks. Run game never really got going. There just wasn't really many positives to take out of the Galaxy performance. So I definitely think there was some credence to the rumors of food poisoning.
Yeah, we got to give a little bit of props to the Nordic Storm D line and front 7 there, because the Frankfurt Galaxy, they coming into this game, or maybe they still are right now, they're the second leading rushing team in the league, behind only the Raiders T-Roll. We know the dominance of that run game right there. So Frankfurt's been a great running team, and they just couldn't get it going. They really couldn't get it going. And it's interesting, the inconsistency of Frankfurt, because it almost reflects their quarterback play, because Matthew McKay at times shows us some just flashes of, damn, this guy is talented. And then sometimes some flashes of, hey, what the heck are you doing back there, man? Very inconsistent at times, but when they play up to their potential, they are a very, very fun team. I would be curious to see these guys play in maybe a different environment where we don't have all these food poisoning situation going around. We do have to give the props, though, also to Jadrian, who was solid as usual, 17 for 27, nearly 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no picks. Jadrian just clean football. And then Bolio continues to show his dominance with over 120 yards receiving and a touchdown. So just a great duo right there. I know we're going to talk a little bit later about the Madrid game and the duo of Sinnott and Cruikshank, but the duo of Clark and Bolio, also one of the best wide receiver quarterback combos in the league that we've got this year. So, Matt, I leave you with this question. Nordic Storm, how legit are they? Top 2, top 15?
Okay, all right. I'm going to answer your question. I'm going to give you a question in return. All right.
Sure.
So I do think they're a legit team. Chad Warren, we got him in the comment section at the moment, saying half the team was sick against Volkhorn. They didn't make any excuses for it. So
Hey, no excuses there. No excuses there from Nordic.
Outstanding performance by Nordic. I do think they're a legit championship contender. Feeds into what I was saying earlier, that you could build a team in a year and be a championship contender. They've just got so much talent everywhere. Like, they've got amazing receivers outside of Bolio. You've got Almeida, who I've been a big fan of since he was playing in Sweden. You've got Bote Moreno, who just continues to travel the league and be an all-star in every single place he's ever been. They've got a great defense. I do think they're a legit title contender, and I'm thinking them and Vienna are probably who you would think are the 1 and 2, maybe the 1A and the 1B, depending on how you feel, because they're both undefeated and they're both outstanding. My
Uh, I'm not mad about that. And then
yeah,
Davide says, "Keep believing." Okay, and I am believing. Rising Rhino said, "Storm Vikings line 3
oh
top
yeah,
3." You know what, Matt? I think that would be funny if he wasn't being serious, wouldn't it?
potentially. My
Okay.
response to you though, my last question before we move on for the Galaxy, real quick, if you don't mind, is because McKay's comparison for me, I think McKay plays a lot like Sullivan. Is McKay a championship quarterback?
Not if he continues to be inconsistent. He has the
Mm,
talent for sure. We got to find consistency. The quarterbacks that we see that have a lot of success in this league, they get at least in the second half of the season, they are very consistent. Sometimes even a little bit boring.
mm.
Okay, I think of guys like Riley Hennessy is just very very precise, but not so exciting to watch. McKay makes exciting plays, does stuff with his feet, extends plays, throws some crazy balls, and some of the quarterbacks that I feel are more of our championship contenders are more secure,
I
more
agree.
consistent. So, talent wise, yes. Consistency wise, currently, it remains to be seen. Matt, what do you think?
I agree. I think you look at every single championship winning quarterback in the ELF, they've all been kind of stay in the pocket, mobile, like you say. Some might call it boring. I personally love it, but your Jadrians, your Rileys, even your Chads, the championship caliber level, are all stay in the pocket guys. Mobile guys haven't had the most success, so I'll be interested to see how he does with that. I do think he can be, like you say. I just need to see less of these turnovers and a lot less of the mistakes.
Absolutely. So there we have it. The Nordic Storm absolutely stomping on the food poisoned, allegedly, Frankfurt Galaxy. Storm move to 4-0. Galaxy drop to 3-2. All right, man. Let's move on to our next game, which is another, let's call it a snoozer. The Helvetic Mercenaries at the Munich Ravens. And this one was very, very one sided. It was 49-0 at halftime. Our favorite young quarterback in the league, Russell Tabor, he looked good. Didn't play that long, but he was 11 for 13. He had 3 touchdowns, over 200 yards in the short time that he was on the field. And then they got a lot of backups in the second half. Matt, thoughts on this one? And then I've got a specific question for you on it.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, this game was over after the first quarter. 35 up in the first quarter is incredible. They can just score so bursty, can't they, Munich? Like we saw it even against Stuttgart, but they just all of a sudden they've just got 20 points.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
Philip Conwu, which I took out of my fantasy this week, and I made that mistake of taking out Philip Conwu. Such a very talented tight end, 70 yards on one catch and a touchdown. Do feel like they should be using him a bit more, maybe, but he's a phenomenal player. It was really easy for them, and honestly, I could go on a whole rant about the Mercenaries. I don't want to take Jamal's thunder because I'm sure we'll talk about Mercenaries and he'll appear somehow in the chat like he always seems to. But they are just oof. They are not a good football team, Nick. They are not a good football team.
Karen Hogg says backups already started mid-second quarter for the Munich Ravens. So that brings me to my question to you, Matt, because we got to see a lot of guys who we don't necessarily get to see so often with the Munich Ravens playing. Was there any backups that got some burn this weekend on the Ravens squad that you liked, that you were impressed with? Like, oh, that's fun. We get to see this guy. He's actually got a little bit of talent.
Yeah, I think my main man at the moment. A lot of people were talking in preseason about Felix Boy, a linebacker, German linebacker for the Munich Ravens. Definitely showed a little bit of that talent. You can see the burst. You can see a little bit of that motor and athleticism, leg ability kind of sneaking in. I'm be
Yeah.
excited to see how he performs. Some people have had him in like that top linebacker in Germany, like that kind of around that range, which I might pound the brakes a little bit on. Germany's incredible with linebackers, but he has been playing very well in this game, made a small appearance, and I think he's definitely one for the future for the Munich Ravens to build off of.
There we go. Munich Ravens showing a little bit of that depth and absolutely dominance against the Helvetic Mercenaries, who drop another one. They leave week 5 at 0-4, and the Munich Ravens 3-1. All right, Matt, we got through all those games, and now it's time to go to our favorite game of the week. One of the best games, actually, that we've had so far this year, and that is the Madrid Bravos of Spain traveling to beautiful, beautiful Innsbruck, Austria to play the Raiders T-Roll in Tivoli Stadium in the mountains in the Austrian Alps right there. This one came down to the wire. This was an absolute thriller. Came down to the 2-point conversion at the end. Matt, give me your thoughts on this one.
Oh, so hard to wrap it up in just a couple of minutes, isn't it? But
I know.
the thing that with the Raiders offense, it's so annoying. Like because they just run and you can't do anything about it. And you know what they're gonna do, but you can't stop them. They're going for like 7 yards to carry. We saw that with the penultimate drive, the drive before the last drive. They had the ball for 9 minutes. They're just running it up, third downs, and there's 5 third down conversions on that drive. Just kept on moving. Madrid couldn't do a damn thing. And this is kind of what you get with the Raiders. They frustrate you, they draw you in. Then as soon as you get drawn too much in, they're going to hit you over the top because Perry does have a good arm. We saw it with Sullivan. He had a bit of a breakout game with this one. Highlights there on the screen. He's such a dominant sideline guy. And that's why I said I was so excited about him in the preseason. Because when you get drawn in, you allow that real X receiver to get on those jumble situations. But my goodness, we just find ourselves back here every week, Nick, talking about Aaron Cruikshank, don't we?
Oh, yeah, we do, man. And just as I said earlier in the show, that's Reed Sinnott to Aaron Cruikshank duo is, I think, right now, my favorite one in the league. I think Aaron Cruikshank is perhaps the most entertaining player to watch so far through 5 weeks of VLF football this year. He is incredible with the ball in his hands. He is the fastest player that I have seen so far. We saw him take a couple. He took that slant in the fourth quarter, just 5-6 yard catch, and he took it to the house just with 3 defenders having premium angles on him. They all should have got him, but his speed is so overwhelming, and he just jumps off the screen when you watch him play football. He had another great day. What did he have? I think another 120-yard day or so, another 3 more touchdowns. I mean, this is just a guy who's probably, Matt, as we said, not only in the conversation for MVP of the week, but so far in the conversation for MVP of the entire season. And we've got David in the chat saying, yes, finally, Lightning McCrookshank.
Not fine.
Great Pixar movie, Lightning McQueen, the star of the movie Cars, and Cars 2 and Cars 3.
Yep.
And I think they're up to Cars 4 now as well. But Matt, this brings me to the end of the game. So the Madrid Bravos fight back. They were down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Here we see Aaron Cruikshank with that, taking that slant to bring them back within 1 score. And then the Madrid Bravos come back and score with just a little bit left on the clock. And then they go for 2, which I love that. You're fighting back. The momentum's kind of with you. You're on the road. You want to go for 2, get that, and get the hell out of there. So I think that was the right call, not going for the PAT and the tie in overtime, but to go for the win. Love that call by Coach Weidinger. However, I absolutely hate the play call that he made to go for 2. We have seen them have such success in these short yard situations, Weidinger, not just with the Madrid Bravos, but also back to last year with the Rhine Fire. I would expect to see maybe a play action rollout, throw back to the opposite side, which they have so much success having, a little tight end slip out, and they just ran the ball up the middle. I was screaming at my TV screen when I saw this. Matt, what are your thoughts?
I completely agree. I really like in those instances, play design goes out the window, just get the ball in the hands of the best player. I was sure they were either going to run that like play action waggle like they did the first 2 times at Ibanez. Maybe that's a bit predictable. Maybe you do the exactly the same formation, you mix it up, you get Cruikshank on a screen or a slant.
Yes.
You need to get the ball in Cruikshank's hands, I think, in that one. If you need a yard, you're without your 2 starting running backs, because Nico Barrows on IR, Steelig wasn't in this game. You get the ball in his hands because he's such an electric player. If you're not going to put in him, maybe just try and go back to that tight end play. Like you said, I was screaming. I'm not an OC. I'm not going to question Andrew Wandinger's offensive capability. He's probably the best OC in the league. He's absolutely phenomenal. Definitely like an ELF level Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
But damn.
Marcus in the chat is saying shades of Seattle, throwing instead of rushing. Just the opposite. It's going all the way. It's back to the Super Bowl loss from them. That was heartbreaking. This was kind of a heartbreaking end here. 4th down fiasco boys say Cruikshank is not guardable. Give him the ball. I mean, you look at the touchdown he scored just moments earlier. It's on the jet sweep, and it's like it wasn't like that was wide open. He had to create that. He had to create some magic there to get those couple yards into the end zone. Just give him the damn ball again. But you know what? We are playing a little bit of Monday morning armchair quarterback here right now on Andrew Weidinger's play calling. So who knows? Maybe they knew something that we didn't. But Jiminy Christmas, that was an exciting one. Came down to the end right there. And this game, Matt, I think sort of made up for all the other blowouts throughout the weekend. What do you
Yeah,
think?
stunner of a game. And like you said, I love the play call. I was really happy with it. We saw Paris do like the same thing, just obviously against the Galaxy, and it worked out really, really well for them. So just a jet sweep, man. I really wish we could have seen a little bit of a jet sweep.
Wish we coulda. Maybe he'll rethink that next time. But that was an absolute thriller. And here we see the beautiful graphic of all of our results from week 5. I'm gonna give you the stupidest question I've ever asked you, Matt. What was your favorite game of the week? What was it?
I mean, it was obviously the Raiders versus the Bravos, but if I'm gonna go against that and maybe pick one that was like a bit more different, obviously apart from that one, it would probably be I'm gonna go for Ryan versus Hamburg, just because I'm a DB guy. To see someone like Tony, who is a unanimous one of the best corners in Europe, to get those picks was a good thing for me.
Yeah, we like that. We do like that. And you know what? Even though it was a shutout, I liked watching the Nordic Storm because it just solidified in my mind, oh, this is a dominant team,
Yeah.
beating up on a quite good Frankfurt team as well. So there we have it. That is our slate of games for week 5. And here are our current standings. And I got to just draw all of our attention to the South Division because I think this division is so competitive and so interesting with the Munich Ravens, the Raiders T-Roll, and the Madrid Bravos all vying for that South Division. Kind of same thing could be said for the West as well with Stuttgart, Frankfurt, and Paris. They sort of had a round robin of games beating each other, a little bit of rock, paper, scissors situation. What jumps out to you, Matt?
Like you said, perfectly put. And then also you could even see the North and the East because you got a dominant team up top, both 4-0, and then everyone else is fighting for that second, third, fourth spot. Literally exactly the same records on all of them. So like, well, except for Berlin and Enthroners. But like that's fascinating to me is seeing because we only get 2 wildcard spots. That's a big thing for me. So which division is going to get those? It could be 2 from the same division, Southwest. Like, oof, there's so much going on. Playoff implications, like with every game already, is fascinating.
The top 10 of this league, and when I talk about the top 10, Matt, I just want you to know the Prague Lions are in that conversation. Okay.
Yeah.
And when I
Yeah.
say the top 10 of this league is so interesting, there are going to be 4 teams that are heartbroken that don't make the playoffs this year. It's going to be incredibly competitive. There's going to be great teams that we love that will not make the playoffs. And I think that just speaks to kind of the competitive nature of what we've got this year. All right, Matt. So let's move on to our little segment that we like to call As Seen on Social. And we have got a fun situation on social media. A little bit of a beef, I would say. Matt, would you like to explain what was going on social media?
There we go. Right. So one of my favorite players in the league is Sir Raji. He's well known for poking some fun at people in the league after games. He puts some memes up on his story targeted at a former defensive player of the year, which is, I think, really bloody funny because like they cracked me up. Now I sent him a message afterwards. I was like, that's really, really good. All of them are spectacular. I know how he has them. Like you can see them flashing through. Outstanding. Mr. Carl Kitchens didn't take as kindly to those jabs, let's say, and retaliated with his own like film tape of
Yeah.
Raji getting beat on some plays. But I'm excited for it. I love it. I like having players going back and forth. This is an adult league, you know what I'm saying? Like we have players that don't necessarily get along. No one has to get along. To have people kind of calling each other out, having a bit of beef. For me, it makes it a lot more entertaining from like that Monday to Friday range.
Hey, we welcome this. We need more of this in the league. We've got, of course, team rivalries. I love a little bit of social media rivalry between individual players. And you can get a little bit of funny with it. Lucas, can you pull back up that one about Jarvis ranking the Ryan Fire at 11th? Which, by the way, Matt, I mean that was on social, and I wasn't here to talk about that. What were your thoughts on Jarvis putting the Ryan Fire at 11 in his power ranking? Because he took a lot of flack on social media.
Deservedly so.
A bold take.
I love Jarvis. I don't know what he was thinking because then he predicted the Fire to win that game. So like it was a little bit of a weird one. Me and you, we're kind of veterans in this at the moment. Jarvis is still in his rookie season on the ELF Live, I would say. So maybe he's not used to getting flamed so much for the power rankings.
But I like that. I love that Jarvis took a bold swing there. I'll call it a swing and a miss, but you got to swing. He went down swinging for the fences right there. And then on social media, we also had, and this is kind of becoming a tradition, something that I really like, of the Nordic Storm players chugging beers after their victory. Nordic Storm, man, they're fun. They're fun on social media with the players. I don't know. We've seen some close friend stories from some of the guys from J Drain. We've seen some fun stuff. This team seems to have really good team chemistry. And when you got guys like this after a big win, chugging a beer, hopefully they're not going to get sick like their
Mm.
opponent, Frankfurt Galaxy, did. I think they'll be able to handle their beers right there. So that's always a fun one to see. And so far, they are undefeated and have been chugging beers after every game this year. You know what, Matt? This is one of the things I love about the European League of Football is that we can have a beer or two. The players can have a beer or two, enjoy themselves after the game. You don't see this in football leagues in the States. So it's a nice little wrinkle with European football. We play hard, but we have some fun as well.
Absolutely. I love it. And it's Oliver's a great guy too, so I'm happy he gets his thing. But we need villains in this league. We need heroes, and currently we have that kind of aligning itself, don't we?
Yes, we do. So there we have the as seen on social segment. Now, before we do our most important segment of the week, which we need all of your guys' help voting for the MVP candidates, let's take a quick break for a message from our lovely sponsors.
The new intelligent Siemens IQ 700 washing machine. Own your time. Discover it at Euronics.
And we are back. Thank you to Euronics and Siemens for making this show possible. Now, everybody in the chat, if you just have us on the sideline right now and you scroll on your phone, lock in here for these next few minutes. Lock in, and we're going to decide who are the nominees for MVP of the week 5 of the 2025 ELF season. And we've got a few guys prepped here that we're going to be having in the discussion. But if there's somebody that we did not include in the discussion, put them in the chat. Tell us who you like. And we're starting off, of course, with the Blazer, the most entertaining guy in the league, in my opinion, so far this year, Aaron Crookshank, 11 catches for 146 yards, 3 touchdowns, some absolutely unbelievable plays, just showing off that electric speed and playmaking ability. Crookshank is in the conversation this week.
There we go. Other side of Crookshank, we have Mr. Lucas Hasselvanta in with the Raiders with his performance, 21 carries, 128 yards and a touchdown. Of course, the big win in a 1-point game.
That's right. That one touchdown made a difference. And then, of course, going to the north, we've got Jacob Sullivan. Now, I'm not necessarily sure about this one. I don't know how sold I am on this one. 19 for 33, 357 yards and 2 touchdowns, plus the 50-yard touchdown scamper right here. Would love to see that completion percentage a little bit higher, especially against not such an elite defense. But we've got Jacob Sullivan in the conversation this week.
There we go. Also in the conversation, making a debut in this discussion is Mr. John Cole from the Verheervaar Enthroners. It's the first time we've had a Verheervaar Enthroner player for a long time. The LF Live beat one of the MVP candidates. 13 catches, 140 yards and a touchdown. A very good way to reintroduce yourself to ELF fans.
There you go, Mr. Cole. And then let's flip over to the more important side of the football, defense. We got Max Parkinson, defensive end for the Nordic Storm. He had 3 tackles with a TFL and a sack. He was making plays from the interior, from the outside, just wreaking havoc, and a forced fumble as well. Max Parkinson in the conversation this week.
Continuing on the defensive line, Mr. Tony Anderson, we referenced him earlier, had an absolute stunner of a game, over 10 tackles with 2 picks and 2 passes defended as well. Tony Anderson is the final player of the list.
There we go. All right, so we've got this. I just put in the chat, who should we nominate? And Glenn is in the chat right now saying we can't be giving MVPs to players whose teams lost. That's an interesting take here, and this is something that we always wrestle with. This is a fair point, sure. But sometimes just the way the weeks go, you might have to give it to a guy that ended up on the losing side. I don't know. 4th down fiasco says facts, Glenn. Matt, do you think it's crazy with this opinion from these guys in the chat here, if we nominate Aaron Cruikshank, though, even though they lost.
It was a loss in a 1-point game. If they got blown out, they'd be more reasonable to say that he shouldn't be in it. I always had the rule of if you played Cologne, I ain't going to nominate you. That's why some people say about DJ Irons. I'm not going to vote DJ Irons for this one. I don't know. I get where they're coming from. It's an absolute valid point. I'm more torn between Max Parkinson and Tony Anderson. I don't know which one of them to go for, but Cruikshank had nearly 200 yards. He got 3 touchdowns, so I think he probably should be in it too.
Yeah, I know what you're saying, Glenn. I know what you're saying, 4th down fiasco. However, I don't think that game would be anywhere near a 1-point ball game without Cruikshank. Most valuable player, he added an incredible amount of value. It does not say most W player, okay? It's not a W. It doesn't necessarily have to have a win in there. Marcus is saying Shank. Matt, I'm kind of with that. I feel like we have to have Aaron Cruikshank.
I'm not opposed. 3 touchdowns is 3 touchdowns. And like you said, they would not have been in that game if it wasn't for Aaron Cruikshank. Like, he was the only player they could have went for. My one's is Parky or Tony. I don't know who to go for. I need not liven up for more chat interactions. Generally, I don't know who to go for. Max Parkinson could be the defensive player of the year this year. Phenomenal, forced a fumble on Sandro Platzkammer. Multiple tackles, phenomenal game for him and a sack. Continues to be number 1 in the league. Tony Anderson, 2 picks, but again, didn't play the best quarterback. Maybe I think I'm going to lean Parkinson. He played against 2 of the best offensive tackles in Europe with Steven Nilsson and Keanu Ebanks. He still performed at a very high level. So I think I've just sold myself.
Yeah, leaning towards Parkinson. Well, yeah. I think that logic holds because, okay, Tony Anderson, incredible stat line, but I was talking a little bit of shit earlier about Brzezowski and how I probably could have ran for 107 yards against Cologne. You know what? I might have been able to have 8 or 9 tackles against the Hamburg Sea Devils without a viable starting quarterback this past week. I would probably lean a little bit more towards Parkinson. And let's see, what do we have in the chat? Yeah, Max went crazy against probably the best O-line on paper. That's from Glenn. Glenn is out here. He's vouching for his current teammate and his former teammate. You do have to respect the loyalty to the teammate right there. But Glenn, and I need you to answer this in the chat. When it comes down to it, who are you going to vote for? Who is your nominee? You got to pick your former teammate or your current teammate. We'll give him about 20 seconds because there's a slight delay here.
And even Michael with the Penta WWE Penta reference. I'm loving that. Jeez,
hey, there you go.
Diverse audience. I'm loving
that. There you go. Okay, let's see. Let's wait for a second here to see what Glenn says. But Matt, I feel like I'm leaning towards Parky as well, just because of who we play.
Yeah, if you're going Parky, I might go Tony.
Well, then we're going to have no Cruikshank.
I think I might be okay with that. I don't know. Like, it's tough because Tony played not a very good team, but then
we got to think a little bit about our personal reputations as nominee choosers because we have already done a week where we had 2 defensive players, and I'm not opposed to that. But we just say offense sells tickets as well, and Cruikshank, I think Cruikshank is a guy bringing a lot of excitement. So I would be a little bit.
My pitch to you. So let me have Parky. Right? Let me have Parkinson. He's a UE guy. He's a former UK guy. Me and him, we've met a ton of times, obviously through UE, and I was on the UE Bullets staff as well. So you gotta let me get my UE Bullet in this one, and let me pick Parkinson.
You take Parky. I'm taking Cruikshank.
Okay, there we go. I'm good with that. I'll take that deal.
Okay, and we are very sorry to Tony Anderson. You had a great game, but the Hamburg Sea Devils are in shambles this week, so it carries a little bit less weight, even though it was an incredible stat line. Parky playing against some of the best offensive line in the league. Whether or not they are sick, they are still some of the best. So let's do it. We are going Shank and Parky are going to be our nominees for MVP of the week. You guys know the drill. You go on the ELF Instagram story in the next 24 hours and you vote and you vote and you vote on who you think should be the MVP of the week. So there we have it, Matt. I can live with our choices. I can live with our nominations.
I'm very happy with our nominations. I think we're the people's champ for a reason. We both went with people that everyone wanted us to go for.
Yeah, there we go. You know, we were swayed by the audience. We we're taking the audience into account. So there we have it. That's week 5, our recap show. It's good to be back on here with you, Matt. I missed you, man. Missed you guys in the chat too.
Oh, you're too sweet. You're too sweet. I appreciate it. I missed you too, Nick.
Thanks, brother. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to go vote on the Instagram story, and we will see you next time.